Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast. This is where we learn what love is and how to live a life of love in every area. My name is Dr. Mark A. Hicks, author of the book Learning Love. Love can be practical, tangible, and a realistic life for everyone, regardless of your relationship experiences so far. So thank you for joining me as we spend some time learning love.
Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today's question is, what do we do when a friend or family member or someone that we care about, someone that we love, is on the other side of the political spectrum? People are facing this. This is a widespread problem. I know one couple that divorced because they found themselves on opposite sides of the political spectrum and they just couldn't reconcile that. It destroyed their relationship, destroyed their marriage. Now, as this show airs, we're in the midst of the holiday season. We've just come through Thanksgiving. We are entering into Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. New Year's Day is just around the corner. There's going to be a lot of gatherings at work, in neighborhoods, among family members, with friends. And hopefully we can enjoy these. But we live in a time where there's a lot of tension because family members and friends and co-workers and neighbors have different ideas politically. And those have become so heated in our current environment that relationships are being lost. Now, one of the realities of life is sometimes some relationships do have to come to an end. But we hope that's not the case. We hope that we can salvage the relationship with people we care about. And so today I want to talk about how we address those political differences that separate us so much in today's United States culture. Now, as we go through this today, I'm going to make an assumption. There are some people that are not looking for civility. They're not looking to get along. They are looking for the fight. They believe that they are on the side of right. Both sides believe this. They believe that the other side has become so vile, so despicable, that they must be opposed with every fiber of our being. They are comfortable with the hatred because they believe that what the other side stands for is worth hating. They are comfortable with the anger. They are comfortable with the fear. They do not believe this fear comes from paranoia. They believe it comes from a legitimate fear of what the other side would do to this country if they were able to rule unhindered. I'm going to assume that most people that are comfortable with the hatred are not listening to a podcast called the Learning Love Podcast. And if someone sees an episode that says love, relationships, and politics, if they are comfortable with the hatred, if they have embraced the hatred as a righteous anger, they're probably not clicking on this. So I'm going to assume, if you're listening to this right now, you're hoping to regain some civility within your family, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your co-workers. That you want to see them as human beings, even if you disagree with them. You want to hold on to what you believe and stand for what you believe and express what you believe, but still salvage the relationships that are important to you. So that's what we're going to try to do. Today I'm going to give you 3 insights that I believe can help you keep the civility. Now remember, civility doesn't mean avoiding conflict. We can still have conflict. We can still have discussion and arguments and disagreements, but we do it in a constructive way. We do it in a way that treats one another with dignity and that we continue to care about that person and about that relationship even if we disagree. And we try to have conversation around that disagreement in such a way that maybe, in our wildest dreams perhaps, we can come to some sort of understanding. And so today, I'm giving 3 insights that I believe can help you salvage those politically divided relationships. So let's get started with number 1. The first thing you need to do if you want to try to salvage relationships with people you disagree with, particularly in a very divided political environment, you have to recognize one foundational, eternal truth. And I'm going to warn you, this is a tough pill to swallow. You have to recognize people have the right to be wrong. Don't we hate that? It is a person's right as a human being to be wrong. We all are. On some level, we're all mistaken. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have viewpoints that are messed up. We all have ways of thinking that just aren't quite right. That's the reality of being human. And so, we have that right. It doesn't make us bad people to be wrong. It doesn't make us evil to be wrong. And so one of the best things you can do is to recognize that right, to understand that people are going to be wrong, and that's okay. They're mistaken. They have a bad point of view. But when we start labeling them as evil, when we start labeling them as being potentially the downfall of humanity because they are wrong, then it justifies us treating them in horrible ways. We justify a lot of actions because we convince ourselves that they're wrong and they have to be destroyed. Now, we don't necessarily destroy them physically. Hopefully we don't go out and kill these people, although some people do speak in terms of war, civil war, destruction. I hope we can put that aside. That's not going to help anything. But more likely, we are quick to try to destroy someone emotionally. We believe that they should be destroyed on an emotional level for believing something so horrible. People have the right to be wrong. And we can have a certain level of empathy, understanding that we've been wrong too sometimes. And how do we want people to treat us when we're wrong? Well, we want them to be understanding. We want them to tell us if we're wrong, but we want them to do it in a certain way with a certain measure of civility and kindness and patience. Now, being civil and kind and patient is really difficult when you believe that the downfall of humanity comes when those people have power. But if we can take it out of that broad worldview and just look into the eyes of your friend, your family member, your coworker, and understand they are a human being that makes mistakes, and on this one, they're wrong, at least in your opinion. And they have the right to be wrong. That's part of the human experience. So try to take a deep breath. Doesn't mean you have to like it. Doesn't mean you don't confront it. It just means on a certain level you have empathy for that person. And you can have kindness for that person because you understand we've all been wrong sometimes. That's part of being human. They're not evil. They're just wrong. Once you accept that very tough pill to swallow, it's much easier to demonize those we disagree with. But once you realize they have the right to be wrong, they're just human, we can move on to a second valuable insight. The next thing you can do is try to hold on to a sense of curiosity. Once you have accepted that this is just a human being you're talking to, and we all make mistakes, they're not evil, they're not Satan, they are mistaken, they are misinformed, they are wrong. It's easier then to keep a sense of curiosity. How did you come to this conclusion? Rather than saying, how can you be so stupid? Rather than saying things like, you're going to destroy this country, one of the best things you can do is say, can you help me understand how you came to this belief? I would like to try to understand your perspective on this issue. Can you explain it to me? Now, if we have demonized the other side, we may have a defensiveness. We may think, I don't want to know their perspective. Their perspective is destroying us. But let's step back from that for a minute. Have you ever heard that the best way to learn something is to teach it? That the best way to show that you really understand something is to explain it to someone? You see, a lot of people have never had to articulate their political views. They get into their own particular groups, their own little echo chamber, and what they believe is just reinforced over and over again. Those with progressive views watch news media that tends to lean more progressive. They hang out with people that tend to be more progressive, and they all agree with one another, reinforcing those viewpoints. Conservatives do the same thing. They watch news media that tends to be more conservative. They hang out with people that are more conservative, and they continually reinforce those views. And they don't really have to explain themselves because the people they're talking to already agree with them. They can throw out certain catchphrases. They can throw out the standard mantras, the jargon that gets used among their own political allies, and they never really have to explain it. When you keep your curiosity, not demonizing that person, not bringing hatred towards that person, but being curious about how they came to those conclusions, it gives them an opportunity to explain it. And they may find out they don't really know how they came to that conclusion. If you want to help someone see a different viewpoint, have them explain their own. It's not easy to do if you've never done it. Now, be forewarned, you're probably going to have to do the same. You're going to have to explain your point of view because they're probably going to come back with the same question, and that's okay. One of the biggest problems we have in our political discussion is we never actually discuss it. We yell, we argue, but we rarely have someone say, can you explain this to me? I would like to understand your point of view. I don't know if I'll agree with it or not. I probably won't, but I would love to try to understand how you came to that conclusion. I'm really curious about how you came to that perspective. That kind of dialogue actually helps people think through it, and they may find some problems in their own reasoning. They may find out their jargon doesn't really work when you start to analyze it. Questions are very powerful. Not questions like, why are you being so stupid? How could you believe that? But questions that allow people to actually articulate what they believe helps them learn what they believe. And so if you're looking for a way to have an actual discussion, stay curious. Try to learn how they develop those points of view, even if you disagree with them. And be ready to articulate how you came to your conclusions. Not through jargon, not through catchphrases, but through explanation. That's when you get to real conversation. And once we're in conversation, we can move on to insight number 3. This third insight is crucial if you really want to salvage this relationship. If you want this relationship to go forward, don't just make it about the political conversation. Some people believe that until we resolve this, we can't move forward. That's not actually true. There are ways to move forward even if you don't resolve it. No matter how great your conversation, you're probably going to walk away still disagreeing. That's okay. Remember, people have the right to be wrong. We can engage in that conversation with curiosity, and as we both have to explain in a rational way how we believe and why we believe what we do, we may find flaws in our own argument. We may find ways, believe it or not, that we could actually agree with one another. But we're going to probably walk away mostly still disagreeing. And so if this relationship is valuable, don't just make it about that conversation. Don't feel like it has to be resolved before you allow that relationship to continue. Find some ways of doing things together that aren't about politics, that you don't have to discuss things, and you actually do agree. Maybe you could work together to raise money for disaster relief. Most everyone on both sides of the political spectrum believe in helping people after something like a hurricane or tornado. It's almost universally agreed upon, and so maybe raise money, or maybe volunteer in some way, and work together side by side to help some people that are in need. There are charitable causes, humanitarian causes, perhaps faith-based causes that people can agree on even if they come from opposite political spectrums. And even if that disagreement has not been resolved, work together side by side to make the world a better place. Show your humanity and see theirs at work too. If it's a co-worker, maybe volunteer to work on a project together. You don't agree politically, but you both have talent in what you do for a living. Work together. And maybe you'll see that they're not all bad, and you can show them you're not all bad either. It can be something as simple as picking up trash in a neighborhood, or working together to cook that Christmas dinner. But find ways to work together, to be together, to laugh together, to accomplish something together that's not about politics. You can continue the conversation later. Keep that curiosity. But when you understand a person has the right to be wrong, it's unfortunate, but it's okay. We can work with that person who's so clearly mistaken and so clearly off track in their thinking, but we might be able to see they're still a good person and show them that we're a good person too, even though they think we're out of our minds for believing what we do. If that relationship is valuable to you, don't just make it about the conversation. Have the conversation, stay curious, express your point of view, listen to their point of view, have a conversation where both of you need to articulate what you believe, not defend yourself, but to answer the true curiosity of the other, but then put it aside and work together. Do some good together. Find some ways of being a decent human being together at the same time. If you do these things, it can help you salvage those relationships. You may never agree. But when these relationships with family or friends or co-workers are valuable to you, they may be worth saving even when they have gone to the dark side of politics, in your opinion. Regardless of which side you are on, put these insights into place with those you care about who are on the other side, and you can maintain love, relationships, even in the midst of politics.
Thank you for joining me on the Learning Love podcast. If you're ready to live your life of love, visit my website, markahicks.com, to get my free ebook, The 5 Components of Love. And coming in 2025, my new book from Morgan James Publishing, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. Pre-orders will be available soon. And remember, love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. Love well, everyone.